one thing that we've noticed is that the ease and really grateful to, the digital platforms, how they've really worked hard to kind of rewire consumer behavior and make it very easy and very straightforward to transact. We are trying to take and use a lot of that intellectual capital, I should say, to really understand and where we can play a role. Again, going from a lean back experience to an interactive experience.
Welcome to the PubWay, an original podcast by SeedTag, the global leader in neurocontextual advertising. Join us as we sit down with leaders from across the media ecosystem to unpack the trends, challenges, and innovations shaping the supply side of ad tech. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the PubWay podcast. My name is Tina Iannacchino.
And I'm Mike Villalobos. And in today's episode, we're going to be diving into the world of advanced TV, but really focusing on the redefinition of what TV has actually been. Everything from ranging to interactive ads, the whole ad experience, leveraging data, and the shift from what has traditionally been brand marketing into more performance-based marketing.
And joining us for all these super fun topics, I'm thrilled to introduce Michael Scott, Vice President, Head of Sales of Ad Revenue and Operations North America for Samsung Ads. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Hey, Tina. Hi, Mike. Good to be with you. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited to talk about all those really fun topics. So,
fun is the key word here.
Exactly.
And before we dive in, it would be great if you could give a little more context to your role with Samsung, a little about your career, just so that audience understands your perspective.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So I've been in the advertising and media business for quite a while now. I've spent my career what I call marketing to marketers, basically in sales and marketing functions, working with large, Fortune 500 marketers. I've done everything from television and the Olympics at NBC to smaller creative businesses that I owned, to global businesses managing creative, to where I am today with Samsung, of launching a smart TV advertising business about 8 years ago, growing into a worldwide phenomenon known as connected TV and connected TV advertising. So we're delighted to be here today. There's a lot to talk about, so probably enough about me. The business itself works with, it's an ad platform that works with a variety of Fortune 1000 and more marketers on really helping them harness the power of connected television, both for upper funnel and, as we'll talk about today, lower funnel and performance solutions. So we have a lot going on, a lot of great solutions and impact that we're making for advertisers and marketers around the world, and delighted to talk about what we have going on here in North America.
Yeah, I think it's impressive to see the shift coming from the lean back experience and going more into the action taken within the TV environment. We have companies going public most recently in the last couple months, focusing just on performance marketing within advanced TV. Mm-hmm. How is Samsung really helping advertisers go from what was that lean back experience, as I mentioned, into more of a performance driven or outcome based platform?
Yeah, it's really a few things. And again, with us as being a consumer electronics company, everything starts with our consumer, right? And so where I really help is I help bring advertisers to intersect at that consumer experience. One kind of transformational shift I think we're seeing with really smart marketers and also publishers, not just us, but across the spectrum, is really understanding that television is no longer a lean back experience, right? It is much more of an interactive experience, and with smart TVs, the opportunities are endless. We're working incredibly hard to try and shorten the time between impression and some sort of conversion event for advertisers. We'll talk a little bit about some of the products and solutions we're bringing to market a little bit later. But I think that's one of the big things is if you kind of step back, is marketers realizing that, hey, I'm not just renting 15 or 30 seconds, but I have a real opportunity here to make an impact on the biggest and baddest screen in the home.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to performance marketing, publishers inherently, they're in the conversation, but there could be some misunderstandings around kind of the role in performance in CTV today. And also with publishers and CTV overall, I feel like you get kind of a jumble of broadcasters, and usually what they like to be referred to call a distributor or content producer, but they're all still one happy family within the ecosystem.
It can be confusing, especially if you're from the outside, especially when we start to introduce, at the intersection of traditional media and new technology, all of our acronyms. So I think at Samsung, we really try and make it incredibly easy for marketers to, to transact with us and be able to see their results in real time, whether that's anything from incremental reach straight down to, web conversion.
And you mentioned really providing marketers an easy way to activate. Do you think the shift is being caused because the ease of activation or because the consumption of the user attribution? Walk me through what you've seen in the last 5 to 10 years, because CTV is now taking a chokehold on a lot of people because of the ability to track so many more metrics, but also access affluent homes alike as well.
Yeah, if you think about it from a CMO's perspective or SVP of media and an advertising agent at an advertiser, they've known that they can use television to quickly build a brand, right? You can build a brand in 13 weeks and get 80% reach and awareness for a brand really quickly. That's what television's power has been. Sight, sound, motion, emotion, and color, the ability to tell a story in 30 seconds, even 15 seconds or 60 seconds if they're a D2C pharma marketer. What gets them really excited now is the ability to help quantify and understand the impact that it's making. So previously, they were using proxy measurements that might have been just demographics like adults 25 to 54 and the delivery of the reach that might have been as a proxy for some sort of impact. Now they have the ability to actually look at and figure out how their media money is being spent, their working dollars are being spent, and where the impact is. So for instance, one of our products that we brought to market is optimal reach, where we not only use machine learning to help make the audiences more predictive, it's based on some sort of outcome. So we can tell marketers, and they know that with every dollar that they spend on incremental reach on the CTV platform on Samsung, what that outcome will be. That makes their life so much easier with procurement and the CFO office when they can actually quantify what the dollar in for media is into the dollar out. 10 years ago, that didn't exist. They had a very big line item on television, and they had to just say, trust me, or we're going to attach it to some sort of audience delivery or some sort of antiquated media mix modeling that they might be using. The world and the game has completely changed.
Yeah, and I think how consumers are interacting with content and ads in general has also inherently shifted, especially if you look at like Gen Z, and they're just much more used to the shoppable content and the immediate transaction. Whereas like as millennial myself, a large transaction I'd probably still open my laptop to do. Yeah. Whereas the younger generation is still very happy to do it on their phone, do it on their TV. So what are some new behaviors that you feel are being kind of unlocked by more interactive formats or those shopping breaks as they're kind of transitioning into the CTV environment?
Tina, you're absolutely right. And we care about all generations here at Samsung.
We don't discriminate.
No, absolutely not. Speaking as a Gen Xer. So one thing that we've noticed is that the ease and really grateful to, the digital platforms, first starting with obviously web and your PC, your laptop, moving into mobile and tablet, about how they've really worked hard to kind of rewire consumer behavior and make it very easy and very straightforward to transact. Almost a little too easy in some platforms where you can make that impulse purchase very late at night when you probably should just be putting the phone down and going to bed. That notwithstanding, we are trying to take and use a lot of that intellectual capital, I should say, to really understand and where we can play a role. Again, going from a lean back experience to an interactive experience. Early on, we have put a browser on our television. I'll be the first to admit that using a web browser on a beautiful Samsung television is a very incredibly frustrating experience. So yep. I don't think you're going to have, even if you had a keyboard connected, I don't think you're going to do that. You're probably going to pair it with your phone, tablet, or your laptop, depending on what device you're most comfortable with to try and transact commerce. So two things really that come to mind. The first is, the challenge that I've given our product and engineering team and our product marketing team is how do we take steps out between impression and conversion? And it's early days right now in connected television. I think you're seeing some very, what I would call blunt instruments, like a QR code. I don't think that anybody thinks that's going to be the end point for this, but it starts to get people used to thinking about television. I'm going to say people, I think consumers thinking about television as a place where they might be able to have some sort of transaction, right? even if you think about shopping networks or even 1 20-second DR commercial, it still requires you to go somewhere else to make that transaction. So we're trying to really shorten that and figure out how we can help advertisers and how we can help consumers make that connection more on platform. So one of the things that we're rolling out this fall is something called shopping breaks. And we're really reimagining the advertising break. Instead of just renting space to advertisers to tell their story in 30 seconds, one idea that we've had is to have a influencer, whether it's an influencer that we hire or an influencer from a advertiser's stable, to come in and spend 2 minutes and talk about one particular product, much like they would in short form on video, or on mobile, and be able to sell it right then and there. We're calling this shopping breaks. It's never been done before, and we're super excited about this. We think it's going to be incredibly impactful.
Oh, sorry, as long as they have a tagline as like, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Yes, it can do this, it can do that, it can do the other thing as well. So along with that is really about us trying to get consumers used and confident to having an interactive experience with their television. We started first with, in ad breaks, something called game breaks. Which the first game that we launched was a game called The Six, which is a trivia game that we actually have that you can play on your Samsung television, but we've created it into a break. Engagement with that ad doubled. So it basically is trivia question that you play with your remote, followed by sponsor ad. The sponsor ad engagement just went off the roof. So those are two ways that we're kind of dipping our toe in. You still can get QR codes. We have a creative studio where you can come in and create your own ads and your own QR codes. We know that that's important for advertisers, but we're trying to continue to push the envelope as as the world's most innovative consumer electronics brands.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about just the general ad experience and really cutting down the steps it takes to get to the endpoint. A little anecdote: my niece was walking by the TV the other day, starts swiping at the TV. And I'm like, what are you doing, Sonny? And she's sitting there swiping.
She's a very smart young lady, because we'll get there one day. I'm convinced.
She looked at me and she's like, it's like an iPad, isn't it? I'm like, well, you're not wrong, but you're also way too ahead of your time. I don't like this. Go sit down. I'll pick the channel. All that to say, though, is that just kind of leads into the conversation around, the shortening of the steps, whether it be click to email, click to add to cart, whether you have your own operating system or not. All that plays some sort of factor or variable inside the conversation. But what are you all doing to kind of innovate there? Do you see strides being made between those shortening the steps and kind of really focusing on that comment that you made earlier?
We do. So back to kind of like shortening the steps, right? Anyone would tell you that the more friction you introduce into the process, the less likely you are going to get to conversion, right? It's simple marketing. So we're rolling out two products, one called Click to Cart and one called Click to Email. And it's reshaping, the conversion journey that we see. Again, if we're able to have consumers and viewers start to think about the remote differently, instead of selecting programming, but really as an interactive tool, a magic wand, if you will, the ability for them to see things in advertising and to have a click to email, which would go to their Samsung account email for more information, or a click to cart that actually would put it into their cart, not on our platform at the moment, but in a third-party platform, whether that's a Shopify platform for SMB or one of your major online retailers for larger enterprise customers. Both of those things make it much easier for the consumer to be able to transact. I do envision a day where we can even take further steps out of that and make it almost a one-click shopping experience. We're not there yet. And part of that is relying on consumer behavior. If you think about mobile, you weren't able to do that in the early days of mobile, right? It took 10, 12, even 15 years for that behavior to kind of evolve on mobile. Part of that's a consumer trust. Part of that is a new behavior that they're learning. And we're trying, as the world's largest, consumer electronics company and the number one television brand in the United States, really trying to rewire and help consumers see the potential and the value. Because that's really important. About, again, as a consumer first company, we want consumers to think that they have unlimited value from their purchase. And it's not just, which it is, a great, glorious picture that sits on your screen, but sits on your wall. But it is just an incredibly versatile tool. And maybe one day your niece will be able to swipe it. We're working on it. If she's interested, we can get her an internship with our product team out in Korea.
I mean, the thought of the one-click purchase on TV is a little terrifying for my wallet, but I mean, I'm sure I'll accept it just like how I have on my phone.
I'm sure there'll be some sort of delayed pay or pay overtime thing for you as well that somebody will.
The click to email thing is interesting because I wouldn't have never done it unless it's already like populated. Like I would say Apple spoiled us.
Yeah.
With like when you get those codes to confirm and it already populates. Otherwise,
yeah, like Shop Pay, like they all have it. Like
I would
all
never
my
go
credit
back
cards
to my
are
text.
loaded. Yeah.
First of all,
yeah. Just think about all that friction, right? And that's really what we're reducing steps, reducing friction, making it easy for the consumer. And if we think we can make it easy for the consumer, advertisers always follow the consumer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you feel like that is probably an area that publishers specifically should be paying really close attention to as development and innovation continues to advance?
I think it is. I think there's always this interplay between making it really simple and easy to execute and almost making it, I don't know, a little too pedestrian, and it could be insulting for their viewers or for their consumers, their users, however you want to characterize the user experience. And I think that's really where publishers need to think and pay really close attention to the creative execution, right? You can say throwing a QR code on an ad is, and I'm not picking on QR codes, but throw a QR code on an ad makes it easy. But is that a great experience for the user? Like who's really at the center of thinking through that user experience and thinking through, the utility and the speed of utility versus the elegance of the interaction. I'm so proud of our product teams that have done a great job of balancing that with shopping breaks, with game breaks, where it doesn't feel like you're just being pitched to, but it feels like there's a real interaction. We also see this in our native experiences. We have a native product called our masthead. It's the hero unit when you turn on the television. And we now have non-media and entertainment companies being able to utilize that masthead. We see big, gorgeous, beautiful creative from luxury auto, from luxury goods, even from food and beverage that sits in that space and really enhances the consumer experience that we've seen through testing. And it also helps advertisers increase their recall. We've done a test where, and this is important for publishers, is the combination of kind of two different ad experiences, right? We know that inherently we just believe that works really well. We know it works really well because we've seen a test where we've increased unaided recall by 54% when you pair a 30-second ad with some sort of native experience on television, putting those things together. So I think that's an important thing for publishers is to rethink the creative experience. And really continue. And I think publishers are already there because they've got a successful publishing platform. But think through how that consumer or that user experience is happening and what's the most consumer-friendly way for the consumers to engage in advertising. It's almost like just putting it in their stream and making it incredibly native and endemic to their experience.
I wanted to kind of go back to the poo-pooing a little bit on the QR code, just because that was it's interesting comment because that's kind of where we're at today, and I love seeing the shift within operating systems like yourselves or Roku and a few other ones that are like really calling out the ease of consumer experiences. But with the QR code, I on our side, what we've seen is CTR. The QR scan is in the ballpark of a low CTR scan or CTR click. And the conversion rates are extremely high because of the fact that it is more intentional and you get a lot more engagement, especially if it's a large brand who has a good cult following, if you will. They're seeing the depth come out of that. So it almost offsets the high CTR or traffic that's going to the site. And because your comment earlier of everyone's so used to mobile conversions, the path is already optimized. Everyone's good there. Would love to hear your thoughts on, are you guys seeing the same thing for your current activations with TV to mobile, whether it be QR codes or anything else that you're using?
Yeah, we are. So we're coming at it slightly different. And look, I don't mean to poo-poo QR
Nah,
code and say
I gotta
it's to
drink
say
a
it's
little.
the connected TVs pop up, right?
Yeah,
Back
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
the early days of Web 1.0, Web 2.0. Um, but it is probably the easiest thing. And it's interesting. Would the QR code be the QR code today without, the COVID epidemic and menus that we all had to scan, right? And so there is something that beneficially came out of all of that. So for us, being data and being consumer and having the largest set of consumer data related to connected television, we're really focused more on making sure that the audience is right. And so we launched. We're building out Smart Outcomes, which is really an optimization tool and product where we're helping advertisers find the right audience to then put the QR code in front of them if they wanted to, but making sure that that's relevant. So the first product that we launched within that, or the first use case, I should say, is what we call CTV to mobile, and we focused on mobile gaming. It is, if anything else, the great place to start because it is 100% performance. You are not getting any leeway. There is no, brand lift study that's happening with that. You either hit their CPI or you didn't. It is ruthless. We
It is a
figured,
very ruthless world. Yeah,
yeah, let's start there. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
that's fair.
And what we saw from the product that we built, which is building on machine learning based on app downloads, app installs, which was the key action that our gaming partners were wanting to see, is we saw that their install cost went significantly down over what they were seeing in terms of social channels. Now, one can say that, hey, social may be just a bit picked over at the moment, and everybody is, tired of seeing, mobile games in their social feeds and seeing big, beautiful, creatives on television is kind of a new green field for that. I think there's some aspect of that, but you can't just blanket it, right? You've got to figure out what are those attributes and aspects of that conversion. What was making that individual convert on mobile from a CTV ad? And we've connected that and we've improved that. And we've seen, as I said, the CPI that has way outperformed social, which is a massive increase. So from there, you think, okay, if we can do it for the hardest category to do it for, solely performance, perhaps we think about the other brand advertisers who maybe are looking for some sort of offline, off television, off platform conversion, whether that's mobile or web. So we also have the same product, and instead of building on app installs, we're building on web visitation, web conversion, web basket, and we've really worked hard with a lot of financial services and seen incredible growth. We're again a performance advertiser, but heavy reliant on television. You can think about all the great brands of insurance advertisers that you see. They're now able to pinpoint the type of audience that they can find in connected television that's going to drive a higher ROAS on their spend, enabling them to go back to their CFO and to their finance department and go, give me this kind of budget and I'll give you this kind of return in terms of the outcomes that the business is looking for. Those type of things of leveraging machine learning for publishers is incredibly important. And I think obviously it's a different thing from kind of LLMs and being able to use generative AI. We have a team of 80 engineers in Poland that we spun up when we saw this opportunity. And the outcomes that we're seeing for advertisers has been great. So it really gives Samsung this 1-2 punch for advertisers. And I think going back to like your premise and, the CTV only upper funnel or lower funnel, how is lower funnel going to play? How are the two going to pair? This is where we're seeing it pair, and this is where we're seeing it really come out. I can't wait till the CPG companies start to come away from their media mix modeling, their view on how things should be from antiquated models from the 80s, and start thinking about really audiences that are driving case sales for them at retail.
Absolutely. And I think on that note on audiences and just better data sharing, the Samsung's device graph is probably a pretty powerful tool for those advertisers to use. And what role do you think it plays specifically for advertisers in terms of like mapping viewer behavior, empowering just a more advanced targeting for them?
Targeting, activation, measurement, attribution, right? Boom, boom. Yes, 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 yes. All of those things we can play with, and anyone in between. So you're right. Our device graph is incredibly powerful. It is powered by a very consistent root ball, I would call, which is the television's unique identifier paired with the Wi-Fi address. Right. Those two things. Your television isn't hitting 75 Wi-Fi points during the day like your mobile phone might be. It's hitting one. And it's a consistent pair, and it's deterministic. So we know deterministically that obviously it's all privacy compliant. We have a triple opt-in policy with our consumers. So all of that, we're incredibly steadfast about that. But with that pair, we're able to pair other devices off that and really enrich the graph, not only with just Samsung devices, our phones, our tablets, our IoT in the household, but also other third-party devices. From that, we're able to use that entire device graph and be able to understand from impression to conversion, even if that conversion is not happening on a Samsung device. And I think that's really important because when you start to think about 75 million televisions in the United States that are across more than 45 million US television households, you're talking about a pretty massive scaled device graph. Now, the one place that's a new place for us to start to work, and I kind of maybe call it the final frontier of our data, is I've been here for 8 years. I haven't walked into a meeting yet where somebody hasn't said, just give me your data. And I'm like, that's not, no, we're not that. But we can find other ways to work together. And so I was delighted to announce at our new fronts that we are rolling out a product called Data Plus. And so what Data Plus is the ability for advertisers to have access to our data. But it's not via an API, and we're not piping in, census level data to people because obviously that's against our, privacy covenant and our consumer EULA. What we are doing is we're able to leverage clean rooms like Snowflake, like Habu, like InfoSum, where advertisers can bring their first party data. We bring our first party data. It's paired together in a compliant way, and advertisers are able to take away from that insights, trends, ideas, and not just about connected television, but about their entire ecosystem. Because part of the data that sits in there isn't just linear viewing behavior that we've captured via ACR. It's all viewing behavior that happens across all apps. So they get to see a really robust picture and not just characterized in the demographics that we present them, car intenders or adults 25 to 54, but against their proprietary audiences. Now think about that for a minute. As an advertiser, you have all this investment that you've made in all your proprietary audiences, but you have no way to connect them with viewing behavior. You now do. And when you have that at scale, you can start to have some very, very thin slices where you can start to tease out some incredible audiences. And we're happy to take those audiences back, activate on them, put them through our ML, and be able to see the outcomes that they may provide. So it just creates this whole kind of full circular platform for advertisers. The missing thing had been the ability for them to come in and be able to bring their own first party data in a privacy compliant way with our first party data. That's what they've been asking for. And I'm so excited we've been able to deliver it and launch it with one particularly very large CPG advertiser. They saw incredible success with improving their efficacy and efficiency for their buys.
And are you guys getting, you mentioned tying this into the Wi-Fi network. Is that part of the internet service provider relationships that you have already preset? Or how are you getting the the Wi-Fi engagement or interaction?
Yeah, it's a great question. It can get a bit techy, wonky. So maybe this is like tech corner for publisher partners. This is where
it tends to happen every now and
This
again.
is where the CTO has to tune in at this stage of the podcast. But it's really simple. So your 8-year-old niece wasn't wrong. It is a big tablet. It just doesn't have the ability to, screen. But just like your tablet, just like your phone, just like your laptop is calling back to some server somewhere with a user agent, which is basically the identifier of, the app or the actual device. Same thing with us. The television is calling back to our servers and saying that device number 1234 is pinging Wi-Fi address 192.192.192.192. These two things go together. And that's as simple as I can make it. And it sits in a table, and then we start appending everything else to that table. So that would be, identity ABC 123, whatever it might be in an anonymized fashion.
We'll have to talk offline about this, hopefully in can.
Yeah, we can have a whole tech corner where I won't be. I'll have people much smarter than me.
Yeah, I'll be there. Well, I can probably nerd out in a tech corner for a solid hour and a half, 2 hours with you. But I think we've gotten a phenomenal episode just to have this conversation with you. And I can't thank you enough for your time. Before leaving, though, I do have to ask, because you've been with Samsung for about 8 years, and you've been in the game for quite some time across every version of it. What's one takeaway that you would like advertisers and publishers to come away with from this conversation?
Just lean into disruption, right? I mean, just be a part of the future. Figure out a way to make it happen. I think, and this is a little bit of like always the, kind of fear operating from that is dedicate a certain amount of your budget to really, driving innovation about where you want to go. And the best marketers I see doing that, the best publishers I see doing that, right? Testing, A/B testing, control, figuring that out. And then also just keep in mind who you're serving. If you're a publisher, it's your user, your viewer, your reader, however you want to characterize that endpoint, that consumer, right? And if you're an advertiser, it's your consumer. And if you really start with the consumer in mind, like we do at Samsung, you'll just never go wrong. So I think that's a really important point for publishers is how are you driving innovation? How are you working on the business when you're so busy working in the business is a truism. It's very, very tough for us to kind of come away from our quarter to quarter grind. But if you don't do that and you don't kind of dedicate a certain amount of your world to disruption, you're going to get disrupted.
I love that.
Love it. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much. This has been fun. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Mike. This has been great, super fun, and wish you all the best.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of the PubWay podcast. This episode is brought to you by SeedTag, the global leader in neurocontextual advertising. Learn more and reach out to us at seedtag.com.